representation from within Ulster University, Ulster University alumni and partners coming from Northern Ireland and around the world, places as far apart as Canada, France, Malaysia, England, Ireland, Scotland, Sri Lanka, America, and many more. And we've got a fantastic wealth of external speakers and internal colleagues and contributors, many of whom are Ulster University graduates and alumni, which is a fantastic celebration of the university this afternoon. So you're all welcome, and we hope this will be a great event for everybody. So without further ado, I've had pleasure in introducing Damon Mcallister, who's going to kickstart the conference for us. Damien started his working life with the Northern Ireland Civil Service, working across a number of government departments. He then moved to the Belfast Health and Social Care Trust. And for the last few years, Damon's worked at the university in his current role as Chief People Officer, in which he's going to just give 5 minutes of his time today to introduce the conference and welcome you all. So Damien, over to you.
Thank you, Karen, and hello everybody, and it's really nice to be here. It's actually a very proud moment because I'm almost reaching my 4th anniversary with the university, and when I came into it, we really had an absence of what I would call employee networks, and I've always been a very strong personal advocate of employee networks because for me, they serve tremendous purpose as change agents and also, you know, the breeding ground for building really strong and empowering employee engagement. And to see the number of networks that have grown over the last number of years makes me feel a tremendous sense of pride. The Women's Network's very much at the forefront of that, but we also, as Karen has alluded to, have the Staff Disability Network. We also have our BAME network, and we also have our LGBT plus network that are all doing tremendous work in building that employee engagement within the organisation to help us deliver equality, diversity and inclusion, which are very, very important, particularly as we emerge with a new organisational strategy in the next couple of months. It will hopefully sit as a very key cornerstone to what we want to achieve for both staff, for both students and for the wider community that we're a very vital part of. Karen's referenced this as the 3rd conference. It's the 2nd one to be online, and I think to see it grown the way we have has been tremendous. To now over have 300 invited guests participating today is a tremendous achievement from where we were the first time we had a Women's Network conference in January 2020 in the Belfast campus, where I think we probably had somewhere in the region of 100 people attend. I think that what has really pleased me as well is to see how the organisation's values have come to the fore in the work that the Women's Network have done in bringing today's conference forward, and particularly as one of the key values of collaboration. And to hear Karen talk about the collaboration between the Staff Disability Network and Darrow and the Women's Network to bring today's event really reflects, I suppose, the momentum we're trying to build in embedding the organisational values, the other ones being inclusion, integrity and enhancing potential. And that's the very essence of what this Women's Network's about. It is about trying to enhance potential, particularly around gender equality issues, but across the broader spectrum of all that we do within the institution. And the very key topic today of well-being is one that, you know, I think has been a pretty much changing agenda for me. When I think of well-being as to where it was as it related to employees many, many years ago, it was all about reductions of absenteeism and encouraging people to be at work. But the lens for that has changed dramatically over the last number of years, and not least in the last 2 years, brought on by the responsibility of dealing with the pandemic. And well-being is something that we within Ulster University are proud of the work that we're doing in it, but actually realise it's something that we now need to push very progressively and very proactively, because I think it's a very critical issue for both the employer and for the employee, and particularly as we come out of the pandemic. We have changed the dial on how we do it within the university and how we view well-being, and we're not simply viewing it as dealing with people who unfortunately fall unwell and how we can support them back to work, but it is now about proactively trying to keep people well and looking at it from the widest tenet in the regards to concentration of mental health, financial well-being, societal well-being and environmental well-being, as well as individual well-being, and looking at it collectively through the lens of teams as well. So looking at the new strategy, I'm pleased that well-being will be, like equality, diversity and inclusion, a key cornerstone in it, and as it relates to both staff and students. And today is a really, I view, an important step. And I hope you all enjoy the event. and leave it informed, I suppose, with thoughts as to how we can continue to make efforts to progress within the organisation, but also, I suppose, how you can make an individual contribution to your own well-being, your team's well-being, and our organisational well-being as we move forward with the emerging new strategy. And hopefully you all enjoy the event and get something great from it. So thank you very much, Karen.
Thanks, Damien.
Thanks so much, Damien. And it is really great to have the support of people in culture and senior management. And just as we move forward now, next up we have Professor Terry Scott, who's going to do a short conversation with us. And it's great to have Terry here. She has returned to Ulster to take up the role of Pro-Vice Chancellor of Academic Operations and Portfolio Development. And we're really excited to have Terry on board today. Previously, Terry was the Chief Executive and the Principal of Northern Regional College, where she works since 2014. And just prior to that, she held a senior lectureship at the Institute of Technology, Sligo, and Dublin City University. And Terry is a graduate of Ulster, actually gaining a BSc Honours in Geography, a Master's in Data Processing, and a postgraduate in Data Processing as well. So she really does have such a wealth of knowledge and experience to bring to the table. And Terry, it is really great to have you back here at Ulster. So today we're going to have a chat with Terry. It's going to be very relaxed, just about how she practices good well-being in such a demanding leadership role here at Ulster. So welcome, Terry, and I just wanted to get started with you telling us a bit about your adventures away from Ulster and what actually brought you back. Oh, sorry, if you just unmute, Terry, sorry.
Yeah, good afternoon, Lindsay, and welcome everyone. I'm delighted, although somewhat intimidated to see such a large crowd, but when I can't see the faces, but thanks everybody for joining today. Lindsay, I joined Ulster as a research officer in 1986. I'm sure some people on this call weren't even born then, so it was a long time ago, or were infants in arms. So I joined from Queen's to a new faculty of informatics at the time. So it was really exciting time to join. I was there for about 17 and a half years. So it's almost like a full circle, you know, the circle of life. So I hope I'm not ready to pop off yet. But over the last 20 years or so, I've had very different leadership positions in very different organizations. So, and in all those positions, and just there was opportunities to work with and learn from some amazing, smart people, and and that's what I've enjoyed. All of the roles had sort of complex requirements. They were in change or about to embark on change, and that was something that I brought from my sort of discipline of being a systems analyst. So what brought me back? Gosh, what brought me back was the fact of the time that we're in, and the opportunity to be part of a new leadership team. The Vice Chancellor being appointed last year, setting out what his vision and strategy was. I found that very optimistic, and I've always watched with interest what's been happening in Ulster. In the various roles that I've had, and actually in all of the roles I've had, there's been different partnerships with Ulster. So I've kept some connections. So I'm just delighted to be back. And there is still some people who were here when I was last here. So that was a good start.
Oh, that's great. Well, it is great to have you back. And just if you could tell us a bit about your role and what does that entail and what does your portfolio cover? It'd be great to know a bit more.
Okay, well, it's a new role, and that's another thing, I suppose, that attracted me to the opportunity, and it brings together an amalgam really of the professional services operations that previously were in different structures. So the portfolio, and sort of I tell you what's in it, it might be obvious why they've been brought together. So it's the teams that are responsible for marketing communications, for widening access, outreach, schools, liaison, student recruitment, admissions, global engagement, alumni relations and development. So you can see when I just list those off, all of the synergies that, there's some very obvious synergies. So this portfolio, Lindsay, has touch points with all other portfolios and with the faculties, who are all also involved in recruiting students, supporting students and the student journey. And I suppose it's the end-to-end support of that student journey, from the pre-enrollment right to, ensuring that when students graduate, that they're part of an active, that they feel part of that university community and are happy to engage with us, whether they become employers or individual alumni, that part of that wider Ulster community. I mean, each year we've about 8,000 new members of that community. So it's a great opportunity for me personally. But I mean, I think I'm excited that the university and the Vice Chancellor, set out to bring these activities together. And I think, you'll often hear me saying is that the sum is greater, should be greater than the total of the parts. And I think that's going to be the trick.
Oh, no, you've got a really extensive portfolio there, though, as well to manage. So I appreciate it will be quite the challenge for you. So what are your plans for your role at Ulster?
Well, it's important, and it's one of the things that I'll maybe mention later on. Having a plan is very important, and being able to share that plan and test it is important. But I mean, my first priority has to be as a new leader to bring the team together. It's a new team, so those synergies, to make sure that they add value and that they don't trip over each other. So I think that's the important plan, working with my directors and their teams to ensure that they are empowered to deliver the new university strategy. So that's been finalised at the moment. And, the headline theme for our new strategy under Sustainable Futures are people, place and partnerships. And I think, this portfolio, as other portfolio, have a role to play in connecting. The partnerships is very big for this portfolio, but, the sense of place in terms of where we are as a multi-campus university, the connections that we have with outside organisations and the people within the organisations that are going to help deliver the ambitious strategy we have. So that's my plan. And one of the sort of hallmarks of my career has been building relationships and collaborating with other people. And I hope that my plan is to bring those networks and connections over many years and across the globe to support Ulster deliver its strategy.
Oh, that's great, Terry. And it's great to hear your vision as well. Thank you for that. So just moving on, self-care is actually going to be a major theme of today's conference. And I just wanted to know, you're in a really demanding role as a senior leader, senior management. And I just was wondering, how do you personally practice self-care?
Well, I think firstly, recognising that self-care is important is the first step. And it's essential then to factor that time in. So if you recognise that something's important and that you need to do it, then you'll find a way to do it. So if you recognise paying your bills important, you have to find a way to do it. So self-care is just as important as paying your bills. And it's fundamental to your, the quality of life that for yourself and the people that you work with and you live with. But, for me, it's about building in that time. And you asked earlier about a plan. So it's having that plan for the things that that help your self-care. So keeping an eye and managing your own health, exercise, socialing, meeting family, friends, recreation, having that downtime is important. Some people prefer to do that on their own. Sometimes people prefer to do it with others, but having those critical friends and support networks are very important. And if they're not obvious, in your life or work, finding ways to connect with people. So I'm a people person, and I like to, and I'm a problem solver, but sometimes it's easier to get somebody else to help you to solve your problems. So you're just having a a critical friend, I think is very, very important. I'm fortunate to have a husband and 3 growing children who are all experts in self-care. and will regularly keep me on track, and I think that's important. Not taking yourself too seriously is part of it, and understanding what are the real important drivers. So I think keeping on top of your own health is very important. And I suppose I enjoy the outdoors when I can. So getting up and out in the morning is something I like to do. So I'm a sea swimmer, so I try and do that sometimes. So that's important for me. But I say identifying and putting a structure around self-care in terms of sometimes it might take an hour, half an hour, but even taking 5 minutes to go outside and get a breath of air and walk and talk to somebody, I think is very important during the day.
Well, that's great. Terry, you've inspired my strapline for 2022. Self-care is as important as paying the bills. I love that line. I think that's brilliant.
Well, you'd be in some bother if you didn't pay your bills, so I think it's equally critical.
Hopefully we'll all take heed of that this year. Well, look, I've only got one more question before I open it to the floor. But I just want to know, how do you think you can help create a culture of wellbeing at Ulster for your staff and the students?
Yeah, well, I think today's event is a great, important sort of milestone in that as part of the commitment. And as Damien has said, everybody has a responsibility. I think giving visibility to the elements of self-care important, giving people the tools and the signposting to help them. But in a work situation, I think it is very important to provide that support for individuals and to nurture that confidence that people have to basically to be empowered. I mean, it's part of our framework, but I think empowered people empower other people. They create that momentum and enthusiasm. So I think the culture that is in the university is one of collaboration, one of innovation. I mean, we can always stretch it and be better, but I think the BRAVE framework sets out very useful tramlines, both for those that are just standing back and reflecting on it, but to create that culture, it isn't one thing or one person. It's everybody takes a bit of the responsibility, and we buy into the common objective of improving, and having better balance, life-work balance, with hybrid working here to stay. So that is also very important, that we recognize that the world has changed and that we need to move with our students, our external partners, but the wider culture and building that in through flexible working is very, very important. And I think that as an employer, Ulster University is definitely out in front in terms of the work that has been done in the last few years to get where we are today. And even as we recruit people into the organisation, making it clear what our expectations are and how they can develop and improve and contribute to that culture is something that's really valuable, and certainly was a real pointer for me.
Thank you so much. Well, look, we're going to open it up to the floor here. So if anybody wants to come on camera to ask a question or type in a question in the chat bot there to Terry, we've got a few minutes left before we wrap up. There's Sean says, can we help with paying the bills part? Financial wellbeing in the workplace, breakout session later. Oh, he's promoting his own session, Sean, your laugh. Anybody got any questions? There's Karen's come on camera. Karen.
I was just really interested in the word you used, Terry, empowerment, because I think, in terms of the networks, that's a big part of what we want to do. We want to encourage and empower as many people across the university to have a voice and feel as though they can contribute to the ongoing success of the university. So I just wondered what your view of how we can empower more people and not just the usual voices that we get at the university.
I think you're right that it's the empowering at the individual level. I think that's one of the things that I thought was very exciting when I first opened the information and on the Brave framework, because it's about leading yourself. So everybody has that control to lead themselves, and then as you come into influencing and leader management positions, it's leading others. It's leading other leaders and leading the organization. But I think everybody, no matter where they've started, as a young research officer, it just seems like yesterday. I would have to say, I don't feel dreadfully different, but I've knocked up a lot of miles on the clock. But the important thing is to have that focus, that energy, and to give people that space and encourage them to contribute and collaborate. And sometimes in large organizations, it's easy to people be in very distinct teams, and often in universities we'll talk about silos. And I think in Ulster we've been very good, and having collaboration as an important value is something that we need to live and work by. And if we're not doing that, and we're not innovating, and we're not being inclusive, then you're not going to empower people. I think an important part of that for me in my career has always been, those one-to-one conversations with my boss, ensuring that people that work for me have that opportunity and access to me, but providing some of those structures, for annual conversations to support people, as to how they can, if they don't feel empowered, what you can do to help them. So I think it's a two-way process. It's not about the boss and the person who reports to the boss. I think it's, ultimately, there has to be decision makers, there has to be accountability. But I think it's important of having clear roles and responsibilities. And if people don't feel empowered, that they feel comfortable and have the skills to know where to go as to how they can help get that empowerment. So if there is a sort of a roadblock to them achieving their full, because if they're not empowered, they're not going to achieve their full potential. And if they're not achieving their full potential, there's a danger we'll lose them.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. I noticed there's a hand up here with Mary. Mary, you're welcome to come on camera, or you can just go on mic.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really enjoying this session so far. Terry, I'm really pleased to hear what you have to say. And I think that at the highest level of the university, clearly these issues are really important. And you did touch on it a little bit just now within the silo issues that sometimes form within large structures like ours. So my question is, how is senior management, what are your plans for ensuring that these principles and policies are brought down to the very lowest level? How are you ensuring that local line managers are on the same page? Is there some training that's going to happen to ensure that the ethos of the university is really embedded throughout the university? I suppose that's my question. What are the plans to ensure that happens?
Well, thank you, Mary, for your question, and you're absolutely right that it's, I mentioned that two-way communication, and I know that during the pandemic a number of things have changed dramatically, but when we get a certain amount of regular engagement, whether through team meetings and having that opportunity to cascade and delegate. Very often, communication is about cascading down from the top. I think it's very important to have the right type of mechanisms and proportionate mechanisms to get feedback. So it's one of the things that that I've set as one of my objectives when I'm sitting with the Vice Chancellor is to provide mechanisms to allow collaboration across traditional the distinct areas within the university. And I suppose it's it comes with my portfolio because I can't achieve it on my own. And then I think that is working with Damien and his team and the other leaders in the organisation to ensure that the cream has the opportunity to come to the top. And that's at different ages, different times in people's lives, in different roles that they have. And not everybody is in a position where they want to or they can at a particular time step up into a management position. But it is about, you know, empowering people and having clear roles and responsibilities. But that feedback loop, Mary, is so important. Yeah. And you know, if you find yourself doing something, and it's always a check for me, and you say, how do you know this is achieving the outcome and the impact? And if you're starting something new, you definitely say, and I suppose coming from a sort of economics and scientific background, you know, as a PI, you always have to have, what are your milestones, what are your deliverables, how are you going to know when you get there? So I think that discipline is something within the university a lot of us work by. So, you know, we do a lot of projects where you have to demonstrate that you've achieved. But I think for us, of being a reflective organization will allow us to move more, be more agile and be more responsive, because I mean, we're a huge employer. We touch the lives of so many families. And if you know, even when you take that of the, you know, with our student body, 8,000 students a year leaving the university, becoming part of this wider university community, you know, it's a big, big, complex organization. And sometimes simple things like getting feedback mechanisms, whether, you know, it's pulse surveys within the department or staff surveys, and recognizing that there's always room for improvement and not being too defensive. Because sometimes the very obvious, you know, the way of saying out of the mouths of babes. So, you know, asking people when they start the organization, what is your experience of joining the organization? Asking people leaving the organization, just so, and everything in between. I think getting that feedback, Mary, is critical, but ensuring that we check ourselves and create those opportunities through representation from the student body, from staff of different types, and, you know, on different committee structures, so that we create opportunities for people. I hope that.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
No,
absolutely. Thank you, Terry. And that feedback, yes, I absolutely agree with you. That's crucial. So, yeah, great to see that moving forward. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Mary.
Folks, we're just going to have to wrap up, but Terry, thank you so much for your time today. And, you know, I mean, I really have learned a lot, and even just taking away, empowering yourself. I think you said there, everyone has the control to lead themselves. And I think that is really inspiring, actually, and really has got me thinking as well. So thank you so much for your time. And we're going to move on. Karen's going to introduce our next speaker.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm delighted to move us on to our keynote speaker today, Professor Siobhan O'Neill. And Siobhan's going to be talking to us about the importance of good mental health and how to develop coping strategies individually and across the organisation. And so Siobhan is, we're very privileged to have Siobhan as a Professor of Mental Health Sciences at Ulster University. She's also the Mental Health Champion for Northern Ireland. Siobhan's research programmes focus on trauma, mental illness and suicidal behaviour in Northern Ireland and the transgenerational transmission of trauma. As Mental Health Champion for Northern Ireland, she advises and assists in the promotion of mental health and wellbeing through policies and services throughout the province. She's also a public advocate for mental health and aims to be a voice for those that are otherwise voiceless, which I think is a theme of today's conference as well. So delighted to welcome you, Siobhan, to the conference and to ask you for your keynote presentation. Over to you.
I'm on mute. Hello. Sorry. We're going on and off mute. No, I'm off mute now. Hi, everybody. It's such a privilege to be here. I need you to enable screen sharing with me, if that's okay, so I can put up some slides. Thank you. So let me see if this is going to work. Yeah, it's still disabled.
Just give me a little minute, Siobhan.
You're all right. If you click on the 3 wee dots at the top of my, when you scroll over my picture there, it's kind of on my curtain.
That worked?
That is perfect. Thank you so much. And I need to go to the first slide and do that. So it's very scary presenting in front of your colleagues. So, so just to acknowledge that. But thanks, and it's lovely that so many people have come along today. I'm coming to you today as mental health champion for Northern Ireland. So I'm going to start by telling you a wee bit about that. As Karen said, there's 3 elements to the role. I'm a public advocate, so that means I have a lot of meetings with individuals and groups around what's needed in terms of mental health reform in Northern Ireland. And then the idea is that I feed that back into government policies. So my secondment's funded throughout all of the government departments. There's a little bit of money from each department. So I work with the justice and infrastructure. I'm working on suicide prevention in public spaces and the Department of Infrastructure, trauma-informed practice and justice, the framework for emotional health and wellbeing in schools, and the Department for Education. And of course, a lot of my work involves mental health reform in the Department of Health. And the first year, I was very closely involved in the development of a strategy, a 10-year strategy to reform mental health services. So that's a beautiful strategy, and I'm now involved in making sure that that gets implemented and that the funding's delivered for that. And the third part of my role is about participating in that public discussion and let people know what's happening, what's not happening, what they should be asking their politicians to do as we come into an election period. Very, very important. And participating in public conversations that are about and relevant to mental health. I use the octopus analogy. I'm sorry, Terry, I'm not a sea swimmer, but I do see myself as a bit of an octopus because I'm bringing 20 years of experience as a professor and an academic at Ulster University. So that's kind of the big brain that comes with me, and the network that I have through the years working on the World Mental Health Survey Initiative, for example. I'm working with the groups all around the world and studying mental health and wellbeing in Northern Ireland. So the fact that I have an academic background is hugely important to me. There must be a scientific basis to my guidance to what I'm saying. I'm always looking for the evidence and thinking about where is the evidence to support what we're doing in terms of mental health in Northern Ireland and the messages I send out around self-care, leadership, stuff like that. So it's so important to me that I retain that independence, that academic rigor, and my experience as a researcher in Ulster is contributing to the job, and one of the reasons why I felt that I was a suitable person to have this job. So I always start these kind of presentations, and many of you will have seen versions of this slide before if you've heard me speak before, just with a reminder of what mental illness is and what it isn't, and the relationship between stress and mental illness and the biological basis of mental health, mental illness and well-being. It's really about the circuits of survival that we've evolved as human beings, as human animals. We are evolved with a stress response, with a very, very sophisticated mechanism within our body and brain that allows us to detect when we're under threat and respond, which usually means fighting or running away. Right, so our bodies and brains are set up for this, and there's unique little triggers that we all have. Because the things that happen to us in the first few years of our life have essentially sort of programmed and shaped our stress response to prepare us for our adult lives, if you like, for the rest of our life. So the stuff that happens to us as children is really, really important. And those sort of triggers and touch points that go back into our childhood, that relate to childhood experiences, influence how quickly we are triggered as adults and this whole fight or flight response and when it's activated. Most of the time we want to be in a safe and social place where we can be productive and creative, and that's how we want to be in our work and our family lives, calm, engaged and connected, and we do our best work there. And a lot of you are academics and researchers, and in order to be curious, in order to see all sides of a problem, in order to analyze a problem and problem solve as scientists, as academics, as parents, as community workers, wherever our roles are, we need to be in that safe and social place. However, our bodies and brains react when it thinks we're under threat, and we go into the fight or flight phase where we're mobilized, we're ready to fight, we are protecting ourselves, and it's all about survival, and we're the victims of this process. And there's often not much we can do about it. We're fired up there by something that maybe relates to stuff that's happened in our childhood, and we become all angry and aggressive, and we do stupid things. And so we've seen a lot of this at the start of the pandemic. I threw out a box of old food this morning that I had planned to bake with. It was over a year out of date, and I was laughing because it's all like coconut flour and stuff that I bought, thinking poor decisions that I made at the first wave of the pandemic because I wasn't problem solving in the moment. I was in that sort of fight or flight state. So we all get into that state, and we do things we're not proud of, and we say things we're not proud of when we're up there, and we get angry. And emotional regulation is really where we're bringing ourselves back down into safe and social. Now, if we're plunged into fight or flight by stress, it's our stress response. If we have too much stress, we'll be up there all the time. If we have too much stress when we're a child, and trauma, extreme stress, where we're frozen, we're stuck in maybe a frozen, disconnected state. If we have too much stress or trauma, we can get these thresholds get recalibrated, and we get stuck there, and we need a bit of help out of that. And the most common mental health problem is chronic anxiety, and that's basically being in that fight or flight state constantly. Our bodies and brains are activated. We're watching out. We think we're under threat, and it's impossible to work. It's impossible to learn. It's impossible to be creative, and it's impossible to connect with someone else and see their perspective when we're in that state. So emotional regulation is fundamental to this, and most of us were not taught it as children. We weren't even taught about this sort of fight or flight, the biological stress response. We're only learning about it when it happens to us so much that we're kind of, starting to get a bit more self-aware. So that's really the fundamental basis to all of this. And when you look at the normal response to stress, where we get distracted, we can't concentrate, we get anxious, we get angry, we can't sleep. Of course we can't sleep because we're under threat. We either eat more because we're preparing for a situation where we won't have food, or we can't eat because our bodies just, the way they respond is that we don't have an appetite. It's about being in the moment so that we can fight the animal. We get tense, we have more energy, or over time, even less energy, all normal stress responses. But these are the symptoms of the common mental illnesses. Depression is like the flip of that. Whenever we've lost and we feel we've lost something and we feel really despairing, we're living in the past. And anxiety is that kind of constant worry and being on high alert all the time. And those are the two most common mental health problems. So being in the past or worrying about the future is related to the stress response, and also related to long-term mental health problems. So it's about our stress, the stress in our lives, but also how we respond to stress. But of course, it's in the body. So I stuck in this next week quote because I thought it was very helpful. I don't know where I got it. I think it was of the Happiness Lab podcast, to be honest. But I can't even find it online. But this is fundamental too. We're not responsible for our first thought because that is our animal brain. But you know what? We are responsible for our second thought and our behavior. We have more control over that, and we can learn how to manage the second thought, the behavior, the stress response. And this is really telling us that we really need to cultivate self-awareness so that we understand when our stress response has been activated, and self-control to manage that. But it takes years of experience. And as I say, most of us haven't been taught it. So, we shouldn't blame ourselves. We shouldn't blame our animal bodies and our animal brains. But once we know about this stuff, I think there's an obligation to try and retrain the brain and try and develop that self-awareness and that self-control so that we can be in our safe and social place more frequently, so that we can do our best in the roles that we have and lead meaningful lives. And I'll talk about what that might look like later. So the pandemic, right, we've been through a horrendous period, and all of the data showing us that, generally speaking, life satisfaction and happiness in Northern Ireland has gone down. So this is from the Northern Ireland General Health Survey that was published a few months ago. Anxiety and loneliness has gone up. However, when you look at the overall averages, the change is not huge. So most people are actually okay, and certain people are better off. Most of the studies are showing that about 10% of the population, even children who were taken out of school at the start, there's a group there who were better off because they were at home with their families in a better environment than the school environment. But all the data showing us that women, people who lived alone, who were really isolated, because we are pack animals. Another main theme of my work is trying to, really show how the pack, how we need to be part of our packs and the importance of that for mental health. But we were isolated, and people who lived alone really struggled. And young people had even poorer well-being, because our brain's developing at such a rapid pace in those early years, and up until the age of 26. And young people co-regulate with their parents initially, with their caregivers initially. The brain is being trained in emotional regulation, shown how to self-soothe, calm themselves down, calm the babies. That's what you're doing as a child. You're calming, as a parent with a child, you're calming your child and showing them how to self-regulate. And you do it with them until the age of 7. They're not able to do it on their own. And I'm a lone parent, so I'm living that every morning with a grumpy toddler. So we're co-regulating. We're showing and helping train their brains as the brains are developing. But right through those teenage years, it's so important that young people regulate in their packs and with their peers. They need that peer contact for good mental health, to feel safe and social, to feel psychologically safe, and to learn about relationships and how to navigate the world that they're going into as grown-ups. So young people had really poor well-being, and all of the evidence shows that the rates of loneliness were higher in those younger age groups. So females were also more likely to feel lonely than males. Females also had poorer mental health generally, and more symptoms of depression than males. The figures there, I've given you, a quarter of that 16 to 24 age group felt lonely compared to the Northern Ireland average of 4 and 5. And those figures are emulated through, and even the studies of the co-space study of young people showed that the younger age groups were worse affected than the older age groups, because they didn't have access to phones and devices and things to connect, to get that peer contact. People in more deprived areas were more likely to feel lonely. Carers, women juggling roles, trying to do 2 things at the same time, which a human brain actually just can't do. We need to stop talking like that when we're talking about women and how great we are, and we know we're good and we try and do everything, but we can't do 2 things at the same time. That's just not possible. But interestingly, that study showed that levels of self-efficacy, our belief in our own ability to change things and create positive outcomes for ourselves, that increased, and internal locus of control increased. And they're the highest they've ever been in Northern Ireland in that survey. So something happened there where we realised who was really in charge of our own destiny. And where the power really lies, and it still lies within us. As I say, we're not responsible for the first thought and the stress that happens to us, but we are responsible for what we do after that. And that's an important theme of the next part of my talk. So what do we need? So what do we do to protect our well-being, to protect our mental health? Well, one of the most important things I have learned is separate the stress from the stressor. So the stress affects your body, right? You need to deal with that. You need to deal with the effect of the stress on your body. And then you can think about the stressor, the cause of the stress. So it's not simply enough to try and manage the stressful things that happen and put the blame elsewhere. Actually, you still need to process the stress within your body in order to problem solve, in order to address the stressor as well. And this little icon, or this little diagram is quite helpful. It's completing the stress cycle. So stress affects your biology, and it's preparing your body to fight or run away. And there's lots of things you can do to trick your body into thinking that's done what it's supposed to do, so that you can be back in that safe and social place again. So you actually need to do some of those things. So this wee brown bag is the external stressors and the internal stressors. And the stress symptoms can sometimes make it harder for us to complete the stress cycle. So we have to kind of engage our higher level thinking here and go, right, I know what's going on here. This is the stress speaking. So we need to complete the stress cycle before we send that email, before we do anything, before we make a decision, before we start to try and solve that problem, because we're not going to make good decisions when we're in fight or flight mode, because we will fight or we will hide or run away and do something stupid. So 7 ways I get this stuff from Instagram. I love social media. It's stressful in some ways, but there's a lot of good stuff on it as well. So this is as good an image as any to discuss, to think about ways of completing the stress response cycle. Breathing is the kind of one of the simplest things you can do, because your breathing changes when that stress response kicks in. And you start to take control of your breath. You're having mastery over that stress response process, and you're telling your brain, calm, everything's okay. So you're tricking your brain into thinking everything's all right. So deep breaths right down into your diaphragm, that will work. But it's really hard to do that if you haven't practiced it. So this is why a bit of practicing of this stuff means you'll be able to do it automatically, and you'll recognize when your breathing's up there and you're kind of, and when you're breathing wrong, you're telling your brain that you're under pressure, because the whole thing's connected. All the systems in your body are connected. So breathing, deep breaths, movement. This has been a game changer for me, I have to say. I exercise every single day. It's just so important. But again, it's tricking your body into thinking you've fought the animal. If you can do movement that involves a bit of breath control work as well, Pilates, yoga, something like that, you're getting a double whammy there, because you're training yourself in the self-awareness, the bodily awareness of how you're responding, and also breaking into a bit of a sweat to tell your brain that you fought the animal. But there's so much evidence now of the impact of exercise on our well-being and our mental health and our stress response. It's so powerful, and small changes. I have a campaign running at the minute where I'm trying to just encourage people to build a wee bit of exercise into their life, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And those, every time you do that, every time you commence an exercise, you're giving your body that little boost. So I wouldn't be recommending people start to try and run long distances and stuff at the start, but just small bursts really makes a difference. Creativity is another way of completing the stress cycle. Anything that gets us into the flow. Crying, letting out, like, emotions are signals. So understanding how we feel and writing it down somewhere. Well, where is that? What is that signal? What is it telling us? And if we need to cry, we need to cry. So emotions shouldn't be pushed down. It's like pushing a beach ball down in a bath. It'll pop back up again, because emotions are signals. So we need to think about why am I feeling like that? What is it telling me? What am I going to learn from it? And then and then we can problem solve to get rid of the feeling that's causing but feelings in themselves aren't bad. They are just signals that tell us we need to do something. We need to respond in a particular way. Having a laugh, connecting, touch. If we're lucky enough to have somebody in our lives that we have that physical affection with, that's brilliant. And it's essential for children. They need that touch to develop the brain development too, and positive social connection in whatever form you can get it. So once we start to engage that sort of completing the stress response stuff, completing the stress cycle, then we can see things in a different way, because we're not in fight or flight. And we can start to find new paths, new solutions to problems, and address those external stressors. But sometimes they're outside of our control. And I am well aware of the structural issues, particularly in Northern Ireland society, that have led to adversities that are outside of people's control, including poverty. So I'm not ignoring all of that. I'm just saying that self-care is important as well, basically. So So what should you do and what should I do? Well, what do I do? Well, I think it's important to establish your core values and your purpose. So this is, again, taking it away from mental illness, but thinking about how we can get to the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So self-actualization, thinking about what are we really about? And defining that somehow and clarifying it and reminding yourself of that is really important. So I have a picture of my child on my phone, and I journal. I do a lot of stoic journaling and stuff like that. And it really helps me think about what the purpose and meaning of my life is. And then when I've got tricky decisions or things that are stressing me out, I orientate myself towards that when I'm trying to work out what to do and problem solve. Think about how your coping strategies are serving you. So what are you doing when the stress response kicks in, or when you're tired, or when you're under pressure, and is it working for you, basically? And think about prioritizing your physical health, your physical safety, which has been so important in the pandemic. If you don't feel safe, nothing else, it's the base. Your base is so important because everything else is built on that. You can't, if you don't feel psychologically safe, you're not safe and social. And then think about the food you're eating. I don't even use the word diet. It's just emotions shouldn't be attached to food, but do think about the impact of the food you're eating, things like caffeine, alcohol, sugar. What does it do? What does it do into your stress response and your regulation, your ability to cope? Sugar's not really good for me. I need a bit more protein, I've discovered. And I can't really drink coffee, only decaf. Water is important. But just think about everything that you're doing, and are you getting enough sleep and exercise? And control your stress exposure. Make plans to do something else when you're at risk of being under, of doing something that gets you stressed out. And I'm thinking, for me, it's looking at my phone too much in the evening. So I just try and plan to do something else. And think about how to practice cultivating the mindset that you want. So I put in the quote here, neurons that fire together, wire together. So if you practice mindfulness and breathing and all of that stuff, gratitude is another thing you can practice. How do you remind yourself of the things you're grateful for? And then attend to your self-talk. So we do suffer more in our own imaginations than reality. So always be checking. And mindfulness practice helps with that, because you realize that your self-talk, your thoughts aren't necessarily real. You've got to question them. You aren't responsible for your first thought, but everything else that comes after that, you are responsible for it. Important to set boundaries around finance, around what we spend and how we spend it. Set a budget. It's something that I've had to learn over the past number of years, around your time, around your work and your family, and have courageous conversations. Create safe, psychologically safe spaces for you to connect with your tribe. And I've spoken about mindfulness, gratitude, creativity, if you can build it into your life. And then this one is quite scary, but it is so absolutely true. Live life as if you were a dying person, because we all are, so don't do anything that's unnecessary. Always, this is a stoic thing that I've got over the past few days. Is it necessary? Is it necessary? Does it fit with my core values? And is it necessary? The Take 5 steps to Wellbeing are a nice little digest of all of those things. The research really shows us that people who do all of these 5 things are much more content, and they're much more likely to have good well-being and less likely to have mental illness. So connecting, being active, taking notice, getting into the flow, learning and giving back in some way, which is about your higher purpose and your core values. So I'm nearly finished. I just want to show you a couple of leadership slides, because that's the thing that we're talking about. I use the meerkat analogy. We are a social species. We are tuned in to the state of other mammals. When one part of the pack freaks out, we all do. So the survival states, we mirror them. We have neurons in our brains that are designed to mirror other mammals' survival states. So our leaders need to be calm and well regulated and self-aware. So your first job as a leader, whether it's in your family or community, we're all leaders in a way when we're adults, let's face it. So our first job is self-care and self-awareness. And that's what we look for when we're looking for leaders. Then we listen and we validate to make sure people feel heard. so that we get them. My wee toddler just likes it, just helps her to know that I know what the problem is. You feel like this, and then she says, right, you've got it. Even if there's nothing I can do about it, that helps. And then you problem solve with them, but not for them. A lot of people will have the answers themselves if you can help regulate them and come to the conclusion. I love the brave leadership analogy. It reminds me of Brené Brown's daring leadership, daring to connect. And I use the principles of, this is like mental health champion bingo, trauma-informed practice, but it applies in every single setting. Psychological safety for everyone. Trustworthiness, transparency is essential for the safe and social, for the creativity. And that's about connection and knowing that nobody's out to get you. You know, peer support, collaboration, empowerment, equal partnerships, having a bit of choice, giving people choice, and acknowledging the past. What has gone before? What's the cultural, historical, gender? And in Northern Ireland, the history of sectarianism, what's the context that this person's coming from? And recognising that. And then I put this in about, this is from from King's, autonomy, belonging, contribution. That's what we all need. And I've gone ahead with this idea of constellation leadership, which is brilliant. It's about identifying the stars. And that's your job as a leader. It's not about hierarchies. I'm better than you. I control you. It's about identifying the stars and connecting them into a pattern that works for your organization. And you need to connect with people to identify where their strengths are and where the place that star is in the overall constellation. So happy to take a few questions now, if that's
okay. Thank you, Siobhan. Yeah, we've got a couple of minutes or so, and I just love that identifying the stars. I think we might have you back to talk us through how that might look at Ulster University in another session. But a great thing to finish on. So maybe just one question we've got time for, guys. There's one in the chat box from Sarah, but I just wanted to give everybody a chance if anybody else wants to come in from the floor. Okay, we'll quickly take Sarah's then, Siobhan. She says, if workload is a major stressor, are we better to do a blitz and try to get through it, or should we walk away and come back later?
Both. So especially late at night, I get totally overwhelmed. I just have to walk away. And turn everything off. And then I can come back at a place at a time. And it's usually early morning. And I've done it so often now that I know when I'm under roots, I just go, no, Siobhan, switch off, forget, stop thinking about it, because it's not going to help. And then come back with fresh eyes. I bullet journal everything. Like I have this here, I have bullets, I have arrows, I have stuff, I have notes on my phone. And I know, so make a note somewhere, have a system, make a note somewhere of what needs to be done, and come back at a time when you can start to prioritize. Sometimes I race myself. I say, right, let's try and do this in 10 minutes just to get it out of the way, even though it's going to take more. And sometimes I'm going to just do that on Wednesday afternoon. You can bundle things together, do things when you're doing something else. Like if you have to read an essay, I have a treadmill too, so I do stuff on the treadmill, so I try and bundle things together. I try and blitz things. I delegate like hell. If there's anything that anybody else can do, I will let them do it, even if they're not going to do as good a job as I think I might do. I've dropped the whole ego thing, and I give other people chances to do stuff and to get involved in the kind of work I'm doing. And I work out what's really, really important, and they put big asterisks all over it so I don't forget first thing in the morning that's my key task. So that's how I work. And sometimes emails don't get answered, things don't get done. I apologize all the time, but my one goal is a mental health strategy. It's this, it's that, it's keeping the child alive. That's kind of how I operate. So it doesn't always work, but I've managed to keep the show on the road for a while.
Thanks. Over to you, Lindsay. Thanks, Siobhan. Really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Siobhan. Those 5 steps to wellbeing are really so helpful. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm actually going to listen to the recording after as well, just to remind myself of some of those pointers. So really appreciate your time today. We're just going to move on to our next session, starting at 2. And that is really looking at a panel discussion on physical health and wellbeing. And we've got a great panel lined up for us today. So hopefully all the speakers are there in the room now, and they're going to come on camera and unmute themselves. So really the point of this session is looking at, how can we actually achieve good physical and mental well-being? So we really are blessed today with a wide range of speakers, both internally and externally. And we've got lots of people on to talk about this topic. Just to introduce some of those people now, we've got graduate Steve Mcpeak. He's the CEO of Civic Dollars. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but he's going to tell us more about that today. We've also got graduate Dr. Jonathan Bloomfield. He is not only the CEO of Support to Perform, but he's also the founder of new company UPLA. And we've got Anne Paul, who is the UU Sports Centre Officer. We've also got Gary Kane, who is our UU Wellbeing Officer at Belfast. And we've got Marie Duffy, the UU Wellbeing Manager as well. So welcome all. It's great to have you here. I can't actually see you all, so hopefully you're on camera, are you? Is everybody there?
I think most of us are, yeah.
Yep, that's great, great. I'm just going to kickstart with an open question, and I am sorry, I can't actually see you all on camera here, I don't know why.
It's all right, we're here, don't worry.
So that's great, thanks folks. So I'm just going to kickstart with the first question and just asking you, what does good mental or good physical health look like? And what are some steps that you can take towards that?
Who goes first?
I can't see anything on my screen at the minute, so you guys go on ahead there.
It's Stephen here, Lindsay. How are you?
Stephen, great, Stephen. Thank you.
Well, I suppose good physical health, in my opinion, is very, very different from good health, and it has to be that link between physical and mental health. There has to be a real balance, and it's so important to exercise both of them. And I suppose my main goal would be to get outdoors, and that would be the best way, I think, that are the steps towards it. It's free. Not everybody can afford a gym membership or get to a gym, but everybody has a coat and they can get outside. So that's my main point behind it.
Oh, that's good. Does anybody else want to chip in on that question?
Certainly, Lynn. So Johnny here. They talk about good physical health being that absence of disease, but it's much, much more than that. Good physical health can lead to a benefit to all the other aspects of well-being that we're talking about here today. Not only mental health, which is the biggest talking point that most people are considering at the moment, but it can be wonderful for social health. Like Stephen just said there, the connection with nature and the environmental health, and we can benefit in multiple ways by concentrating on physical health.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Johnny. Well, before we move on, does anybody else want to chip in on that, or do you want me to move on to the next question?
So, Lindsay, can I say something on that? It's an interesting thing, because, and I'll be completely honest, as the wellbeing advisor, I don't know what good physical health looks like, because this is a screen. Johnny just mentioned there, good physical health, it may be classified as the absence of disease, but in a video camera way, I have Crohn's disease. So I have what's termed as a hidden disability. We talk about mental health, and that's the same thing. This session is facilitated in partnership with the Staff Disability Network. So to answer the question, what is good physical health? I don't know that there is one, because we run the risk then of just pigeonholing people who don't look a certain way. And we need to be aware, and the university is, we have the signs on the doors and some of the bathrooms about hidden disabilities, and not all disabilities are visible. So physical health runs a lot of different things, and there's 97 people here today, and it'll be very difficult for us to pinpoint any of them who we could concretely say have good physical health. And that's, I suppose, what makes it so difficult sometimes in what we try to do for physical health, and that we need to make sure that we are not being really, really kind of centered down on one specific thing.
Gary, that's a really good point. There's some research came out last year focusing on health comes in all shapes and sizes. So, like Gary says, you shouldn't pigeonhole someone just because of particularly their appearance, meaning that they're in good physical health. So you could be overweight but quite fit and healthy, or you could be a normal weight, normal BMI, and actually less healthy than other individuals. So just avoid stereotyping would be good. That's
a really good point, Johnny. Somebody touched on there being outdoors, and I'm going to ask the pinpoint Stephen to talk here. So being outdoors can be really good, Stephen, for our mental health, as we all know. And I just want you to tell us a bit about your vision behind Civic Dollars and how that all works.
Yeah, sure. We started out, it was a Smart Cities challenge that Belfast brought out, and I had bought civicdollars.com back in 2013 with an idea for a different project. But whenever they said they wanted to use technology to try and encourage more people to be active, I went in with an idea, and we won the Active Health Challenge for that one, which enabled us to do a scoping study about how technology can be used to get more people active, linking it to a community currency, and I suppose if people will use it and if it can be used. And that led us to winning phase 1 and 2 of the next Smart Belfast project, which is called Amazing Spaces, Smart Places. And the remit behind that was to encourage more use of parks and open spaces and reduce barriers to people visiting them. So we do that we geofence around the parks, and we award it $1 civic dollar for every 30 minutes you spent in a park. And then you could go and get a reward for yourself, or you could donate your civic dollars to a local community group. The reason we done it on a time-based system was that we didn't want to discriminate against users that maybe had physical health problems or mobility issues, that we didn't care whether you walked, run, or cycled around the park, or just went and sat on a park bench. You were still getting out into that zone, and you could still earn the civic dollars for doing that. But by doing that, we were creating incidental activity that people didn't realize. They were parking the car and walking to that park bench, or one of the rewards was a public transport voucher. So every bus journey starts and ends with a walk. So it was real activity by stealth that we were creating to give people that encouragement to be a bit more active without really noticing it. And I suppose creating the social aspect of it as well, that people were donating their civic dollars to local community groups, and they could see a separate set of rewards that would get them new logos or accountancy advice, legal advice, business consultancy. So it was a real social aspect that they were encouraging their members to get out into the parks and be more active and say, donate your civic dollars back to us. And whenever it was coming from that peer level, it had a far greater response than the usual councils or governments telling people, oh, you must get out and get active. Whenever it was coming to that low level, that it was your local community that was asking you to do it, that we had a far greater impact. And that was our vision from the start, was to get the community groups on board as a catalyst to get more users for us. So we launched in June in Belfast, along the Collinswater Greenway and a few other parks then. And we just launched in Dublin there in December as well.
Brilliant. And so how can we get involved in this?
Well, we've got the end of the pilot report is with Belfast at the minute to see whether they want to take it forward as well. And we're also working with a local technology provider who's utilising gym classes to be more efficient at issuing or getting people access to gym and exercise classes. So we're looking at ways that we can entice or link the civic dollars to those classes, and also ways of encouraging the older generation to be more active by giving them extra rewards. If you can verify that you're over 65, that you get an extra set of rewards within the screen as well.
I love how you talked about that idea of community. And we all know students absolutely love being in community with each other. And Marie, I was going to ask you, what ways do you think students engage, or what ways do you engage with students, to support their well-being?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about stuff like this. Well, we talk about it all the time in student well-being, because particularly since the pandemic, there have been so many variations on how we can communicate with students and how they can access support. But we have a setup where basically we can communicate with students on a variety of levels, by phone, by MS Teams. And now that thankfully we're back on campus, we can also offer face-to-face sessions again, which is great. And we survey the students on a regular basis as well. Any students who've been engaged with us in the past, we keep surveying. We don't survey them all the time, but maybe every 6 months or so, we'll ask them a few questions about how they prefer to engage with us, how they prefer to access support. And it's interesting, between the last 2 surveys, there's been an increase in the number of students who are happy to engage by phone and by MS Teams and by Zoom, and a slight decrease in the number who are saying, they absolutely need to work face-to-face with us, although that's still the highest. Students still prefer to access us, in person, essentially. But I think since the pandemic, it's just spread out into all those other ways as well. In terms of well-being, the things that student well-being concentrate on are supporting our disabled students in particular, because we help them to go through the whole Disabled Students Alliance process, and some of that can be quite a challenge. And we help to put reasonable adjustments in place for them so that they can complete their course. And the whole point of student well-being is really about, we're here to make sure that you as a student can complete your course successfully. And if you have challenges with your well-being during that time, that we are there to support you to hopefully reduce those challenges and improve your resilience, really, so that when you do complete your course, then you're in a much stronger position to, you've learned how to seek help if you need it out in the community, you know how to engage with services if you need to, but you also are, leaving university feeling like your well-being has been looked after, as well as your academic situation, really.
Yeah, well, that's great. And I mean, you're talking there about student well-being. I'm going to jump to Gary and talk about how can we look after our staff at Ulster?
Well, across what we do, student well-being, what Anne's going to speak about from a sport perspective, and employee well-being, there is quite a lot of synergies across that, because we're all ultimately dealing with the same people. One of the things that Stephen said was something that we saw pre-pandemic. We called it incidental activity. A lot of people were getting a lot of steps just by being on campus, because anybody who goes to any of the UU campuses know when you park your car, it's generally quite the slog to get to wherever your office is. So you're getting in maybe 1,000 steps just from your car to your office sometimes. And then if you needed to go and speak to someone. So there was a lot of that exercise by stealth for some people, which was lost then when we went. We all moved, well, a lot of us moved back to working from home. So what we have now is, in partnership with our colleagues in sport, we have Active Ulster program, which will be starting soon. And there's going to be a lot of different things that we promote over the next few weeks through that website, one of which being Les Mills on Demand. So we have given people the opportunity to do that exercise at home. Sorry, Stephen, we're not promoting them getting outside because they need stuff like that. But one of the things that we did do before I come back to Les Mills was we did a step-up challenge, and we did it over Christmas time. And we had 50 teams take part. We averaged 67,000 steps per person per week. So everybody was really engaged in that, because there was a competitive element. And one of the things that we notice, and we see this with Les Mills now, is that it's not the people who are really fit that we really need to engage with. And Johnny and I had met before about UPLA and maybe a previous iteration, and the way that worked in terms of weighting people who were maybe not so fit and getting the exercise that they did to have more of an impact in terms of points gained and maybe civic dollars and things like that. So even though we have sport facilities on all campuses, and Belfast is in the pipeline as well, it hasn't been that easy, because there were some issues that we didn't foresee. For example, some people didn't like to get changed in front of their colleagues. They didn't like to be naked, for want of a better term, in front of someone that maybe is looking through their pay, or they see on the mall and things like that. So in partnership with sport, Nan can speak a lot more to this, maybe when she comes along, is that we're trying to address those things that you never really would have ever thought about to get people engaged in sport. It's not just as simple as saying, well, there's a HIIT class on, come along. There's a yoga class on, why wouldn't you do that? There are a lot of practicalities that we've had to think about, like the changing facilities. Time to do this, because, you know, again, coming from the point of view of Ulster, these sport facilities are in your place of work. So you're going to be probably doing that during your break times, during your lunch times. So there were a lot of little practical things that we have to work out in terms of getting people back in when we do go fully back on campus. But at the minute, the Les Mills On Demand and the other Active Ulster things we're looking at are really good entry points for people. And the face of wellness, which, you know, again, you staff may have seen the emails come through, to chart your journey through this from any points of, and what Sarah has just said there in the chat is part of the issues. Yes, it is that females don't like that. So the sport facilities are looking at ways that maybe cubicles and stuff like that, but some of the sports facilities may be a little bit older, so it's a little bit difficult to do that. But a lot of these are things that we're all thinking about, and we're trying to work out, and we're hoping that these ideas translate into people coming and engaging with the top of the line sport facilities that Ulster University has.
And reading your bio, you love sport. And I just wanted to ask you, what role does sport play in looking after the well-being of staff and students at Ulster?
Well, we work off the basic fundamentals that, physical activity does have a profound and positive impact on mental well-being, from improving mood, self-esteem. It decreases the chance of depression, loneliness, anxiety. Then from a physical point of view, it obviously, it's good for your body. It makes you strong, healthy, improves your focus for the students. It improves their academic performance, their sleep, energy levels. I could go on forever here. But we, over recent years, have started to look a lot more at being more inclusive, and we've just about to launch a new sports vision, and the theme behind the sports vision is more of us, more active, more often, as opposed to performance sport. For a lot of people, the word sport is just it's a no word. It probably brings back memories of being sent out on a winter's day in a wee hockey skirt and standing on a pitch absolutely frozen.
I can empathise.
Yeah. So it has meant that we've had to just sort of rethink the whole way we've been delivering our service. And I was really quite interested today. We've got a massive big schools cross country on with 800 kids out running there. And the girl that was organising it was just telling me that the increase in numbers in the senior girls race is just taken off. And obviously that is music to our ears, because those are the girls that in probably 2 years time or less are going to be coming through our doors. And, if they're already getting that message of the, importance of physical activity, it's a lot easier then when they come to university to carry on, doing something. But as I say, it's important for us to try and make sure that we are offering them something which they will want to do. And like at the end of the day, let's be honest, there's times where you don't really feel like going and doing something, but once you actually get out there and do it, it's afterwards the feel good factor is well worth it. So hopefully we can continue down that route, and we would have a lot of like Pilates classes now, yoga classes. And that's bringing people through our doors that otherwise we would never, ever have seen. And quite often it's maybe somebody who, has a sore back, or they're sitting at a computer all day and they maybe want to do something to stretch out their neck and their shoulders. And Gary has already referred to the great opportunity that the university is now providing with the Les Mills virtual classes. And that's a free service. And, you know, if you were paying for that, it can be very expensive. And again, you know, our membership prices are very, very competitive. Students get a really good rate. Staff also get a really good rate. So we're doing our absolute best to get people just, you know, doing something, no matter what that may be. And again, Gary has referred to, you know, we're much more now in communication with other staff in the university who are specifically looking after the well-being of students and staff, and, you know, getting them to refer to us, anybody that would like some help, and, you know, maybe some free sessions in the gym, just to, you know, get them on the right track as to what they should be doing. All new staff automatically get a free 3-month membership. So, you know, we're doing all these things to just try and open the doors as wide as we possibly can to get people in. We're very fortunate here on the Coleraine campus in that we've opened a brand new sports centre 5 years ago now. And the response to that was just absolutely phenomenal. We could never have anticipated the increase in student, staff and community members. And we also have the campus trail, which again is been a real asset. And, you know, especially at lunch times there, you know, and going back to staff again, I see a few people putting in the chat about communal changing and whatever. You know, all our changing does have shower cubicles. It's not communal. You know, so we have very, very good facilities to offer. And we also have different schemes like where people can get involved in coaching and volunteering, where they might not want to actually, you know, participate themselves, but it gets them involved, and also, you know, improves, especially for students, improves their skill levels, which they can then carry through with them and use in their CVs and whatever. So there is a lot going on at the minute now. And then there's big plans for Belfast and Jordanstown as well in terms of facilities and development.
That is great. Thanks so much. I'm going to move on to Johnny, who is a graduate of Ulster. And, you know, Johnny actually has such an impressive bio. You know, Johnny has worked with many of the top athletes like England rugby. Johnny, am I right in saying that? You can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. Now moving on to working with employees. So, Johnny, I just want you to tell me a bit about that journey, you know, and tell me a bit about your background and your new company.
Okay, well, thanks, Lynn. It's a real pleasure to be invited to come and speak here today. So thank you for inviting me here. Yeah, well, I mean, I started off my career in Ulster Uni and graduated as a sport, exercise and leisure in that degree. And then I went across to England to complete a PhD with the ambition of working in professional sports. And I actually came back. My first job was with Ulster Rugby, and then I worked on campus, on the Jordanstown campus at the Sports Institute for 4 years or so. And then I got asked to go to England Rugby. But then I found the career in professional sport was unsustainable for me. I was away for umpteen weeks a year, and once you get a little bit older and you know, you have your family and you have other responsibilities to take care of, it's not a young man's career anymore. So I had to really think about how I could pivot, and professional sport is very limited opportunities in Northern Ireland. So I looked at applying my skills in a new market. So I pivoted in 2015 and started working within the health service in their leadership center on resilience and self-care components of their leadership courses. And then that led it to an opportunity in 2016 working with a construction company in Hillsborough called Graham. And Graham have 3,000 staff and associates, all based around the UK and Ireland. And that's when I started my company, Support to Perform. And we're looking at helping provide strategies and solutions to organizations in the areas of well-being, engagement, and productivity. So Graham, definitely in their industry, but I would say across a lot of industries, they've been ahead of the curve in this whole area for a number of years. And they've given me fantastic opportunity to come up with creative ideas and solutions to enhance these three aspects within their business. And I was very delighted whenever we got some national recognition from investors and people whenever in 2018 they won the inaugural Excellence Award for Health and Wellbeing, and then we were very fortunate to win that award again for the second time in 3 years, just prior to Christmas there. So Graham, definitely doing wonderful things, and I've really enjoyed working with them.
That's great, Johnny. Thank you. Tell me a bit about UPLA. Like, how did you come up with UPLA, and what is it all about? What are the benefits? And what are the benefits through promoting physical activity in the workplace? So
Graham had taken part in the STEPS challenges, or Gary mentioned a STEPS challenge, which is a useful way to increase physical activity for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But they found that their STEPS challenge didn't quite meet the objectives or desired outcomes that it wanted. It wasn't fully inclusive. It appealed to a certain demographic. It didn't reach into to other demographics. It was quite costly as well. It involved buying devices, and there was a lot of limitations and a lot of negative feedback from running it. So they said to me, look, what the other options were really these kind of running challenges or cycling long distance type challenges, again very specific to a certain type of demographic, not inclusive, certainly not for everyone. So they challenged me to come up with a new concept. There was nothing else existed in the market, so we found that gap, and I went away and I considered what could we do that was as I say, something for everybody, but also cost effective and high impact. So I looked at the World Health Organization. They have the physical activity guidelines set for every adult 18 to 64 around the planet and other demographics, but that's the working population. So can we use that framework that applies to everybody? Like we talked in the beginning, no matter what your physical health is, those guidelines are there for everyone on the planet to try to reach on a daily and weekly, monthly basis, and build a game that was fun and enjoyable and encouraging and rewarding around those guidelines. So instead of counting steps or calories, people who play UPLA, they perform activities such as walking, running, hiking, cycling, swimming, strength training, sports, all the activities that we've spoken about, but also things like gardening, dancing. In fact, I often say whatever a person counts as their exercise counts in UPLA. So it's really taking it down to that individual component. What do you count as that exercise? What's contributing towards you reaching those guidelines? That's what we want to try and promote and see more of in UPLA. So it becomes a level playing field in many respects. Then we created this rule that any activity had to be at least 10 minutes. Now, the World Health Organization used to have that rule, but they changed it recently because all movement is good, and I'm not disputing that. But I wanted people to commit a bit of time and dedicate a bit of their day towards doing that. And I think 10 minutes is about the minimum time that you can do that for something to become disruptive in your schedule and become a regular occurrence and habit. So if you can find 3 occasions in your day to do 10 minutes, you're hitting your daily recommended 30 minutes of moderate activity. And again, if you read the NHS, they encourage you to do that in a wide variety of different activities as well. So UPLA is about trying to have new experiences in lots of activities rather than just doing the one you like to do the most. So it's quite good that way. I can keep going because
it sounds really exciting, Johnny. And just to finish off with you, I know you had an offer you wanted to say to people today. Do you want to share what that is? Yeah, certainly. I'm going to put it in the chat. I've created a group for all the people we've got on this call and whoever's listening in afterwards. I'll copy a link into
to the chat for everyone. And this is you're welcome to come and play Oopla. Our next round, every round in Oopla is 28 days long, and the next round starts on Monday. So quite handy timing. So everyone's welcome to come and join and play for free, and give us feedback, let us know what you think of it, and hope you have good fun and playing, because it's all about that's exactly it. This is all about having good fun and reaching those guidelines.
Oh, it sounds great, Johnny. Hopefully we'll all get motivated to start on Monday. Well, folks, thank you for your time. I'm going to ask you one last question before I open it up to the floor. And it's just really, what challenges do you and others face to really try and improve people's physical activity in the workplace? Don't all shout at once.
Can I just I suppose from a student well-being point of view, just listen to what everybody is saying. We also engage and collaborate with sports and with employee well-being. So we all see ourselves as kind of part of one big team of people who are trying to encourage students and staff to make the most of their time at Ulster University, really. And inclusion is a big thing. But one of the things that the student well-being, tries to work on quite a lot is looking to see which students, in our case, students mainly, are not accessing support services or not getting involved in stuff, and trying to target those as well with the help of course directors and academic staff. So it's really important that we work really closely with academic staff as well to promote well-being, both within the curriculum and on a pastoral level for academics. And the one thing that we're really clear about, and there's a lot of evidence to back it up, is when you are more physical and moving around a bit more, particularly if you do something that is structured and on a regular basis, there is lots of evidence, to suggest that it improves your mental health as well and your mental well-being. But we're also working with many students whose mental health challenges can, disable them completely, sometimes to the point where they can't study, they can't sleep, they can't do anything. And physical exercise is like, it almost seems like it's just too far away from them, because they isolate themselves or withdraw from the normal connections that they might have. And our challenge often is to help them to find hope, and even just having a conversation about hope with somebody and looking at what a tiny positive in one day might be for some of our students is the most that they can manage on a particular day. And I'm not suggesting that this is happening all the time or in large numbers by any means, but obviously student well-being, we're seeing the students who are struggling the most, I suppose, in university for whatever reason. And we always try to, we encourage the take 5 all of the time, but sometimes you have to sort of go as minute as maybe only talking about one of the take 5 with a student, just to help them to just make that next move. You know what I mean? But the connection between physical and mental health, student well-being is very much on board with. But we absolutely feel strongly that because the students that we predominantly work with have so many other challenges, whether it's in their personal life or in their academic life, that we have to do it very much in bite-sized chunks, and not overwhelm students as well. If you think about some of the students, for instance, autistic students or students who've got long-term mental health conditions or whatever, there are certain things that they feel are not within their reach. So that's why the whole inclusive piece that's been talked about today is so important. That we see physical activity as opposed to performance sport as being the goal. I know the competitive element of sport can be really uplifting and get people going as well, but it isn't for everybody either, And
I definitely think Johnny and Stephen brought that to light today.
Exactly. It's great to hear. It's great to hear that there are people around us who can actually promote that inclusivity. And I think also there are particular groups of students who face particular challenges. And I think for all of us as a university, we need to make whatever we do as accessible, including for not just disabled students, but students maybe whose first language isn't English, and they come from a different culture, and that compassion and understanding needs to be part of everything that we do, including in physical health and in general wellbeing services. And students from the LGBTQ+ community who find it difficult sometimes to access mainstream services because of discrimination that they've faced in the past or whatever. So there's just inclusivity is something that I think has to be embedded in everything that we do, so that we're as global as possible, really.
And I think, Marie, what we had found over the last while as well is, I suppose, over lockdown, is that sedentary lifestyles and social isolation has become a key factor in a large number of the problems. So even whenever myself and Johnny met before Christmas there, and we had an outdoor walking meeting, even though he took me around Stormont for about 5 miles up and down the hills.
Sounds familiar, Stephen.
I think he was testing me out. But to get outdoors and to have that chat with somebody while we're outdoors, I found it definitely better than what we've been doing over the last couple of years of sitting and chatting to people in front of the screen. Well, that's actually
something that we offer as well to our students. So
great.
If some students find it difficult to sit in a room even with you anyway, because they need to, they don't maybe want to do the direct eye contact, or they want to be moving, but and we're not like seeing it necessarily as a physical activity, but it's, as a result, it kind of is added on as another positive thing. So we have an arrangement whereby we can actually be with the student on campus and either walking around, or say if they were using a wheelchair, walking along with them, or if, it doesn't matter what way they move around, but however way they want to move around, or even if it's just sitting on a bench or something, our staff will actually set up a session outside. It could be just sitting in the garden, or it could be a walk and talk, or whatever it is. But we've discovered that for some students that actually works really well.
It's been fantastic today to see the amount of resources available, the amount of opportunities available for people to get out and be active, whether they're staff or they're students. It's great. And I'm conscious of time here, so we've only got a couple of minutes before we wrap up, and we've got 2 minutes exactly. So does anybody, I'm going to open it to the floor. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? Feel free to come on camera and ask your question, or you can put it in the chat box. I'll quickly try and man it here. And I note Sarah has made a comment there in the chat box about saying that her key takeaway for today is walking. Walking meetings are great, so that's good, Sarah. I'm feeling inspired myself. Okay, well, look, there don't seem to be any questions, but we really appreciate your time, folks. And I'm going to put you on the spot just quickly, so you're allowed one sentence. Just tell me a top tip for getting us active.
Just do it. We have so much to offer, but it's just trying to get the message out there. And even talking about disability, like we've got disability basketball, we've got walking football, there's brilliant. So much there. If only we could just get these people that would benefit from it to come and avail of it.
Love it. Just do it.
My top tip is, well, apart from playing Oopla, obviously, is diarize it. You've got to schedule it. If you want to be more active, it's going to cost you time. To make sure that time happens, you've got to put it in your schedule.
Oh, you put me under pressure, Johnny.
So it's your lunchtime walk. Put it in Monday to Friday, recurring.
That's great.
Or get yourself a dog, and the guilt will make you move.
Great tip,
if you haven't moved.
Stephen, what about you or Gary? Stephen or Gary, do you have a top tip?
I'll get outdoors. That's it.
Get outdoors. That's great.
Short and sweet.
Gary,
the tip is the same as Anne's. I mean, one of the world's biggest sports companies uses it. Sometimes when you're just not motivated, you just have to go and do it. And then you get the motivation from that.
Yeah.
You get some of us don't want to exercise. Exercise is hard.
Yeah.
Even when you're fit, exercise is hard because you have to keep pushing it. So just do it, and then you'll feel better when you're finished, and that motivates you to do it the next time.
You're inspiring me, folks. So thank you so much. Just to wrap up today, thank you very much for your time. It was really insightful. It's great to hear about all that's going on both at Ulster and outside of Ulster. So don't forget to sign up to Oopla, Civic Dollars, and Gary, some of the new training programs that Ulster have as well. So that's great, folks. We're going to move on to our next session now, and I'm conscious we maybe haven't had a bit of a break, so hopefully you can get a 1-minute breather before the next one. And the next session is going to be one of 4 breakout rooms, and so you have to choose which one you want to go to, but we have 4 great sessions lined up, and I'm just going to tell you about each one now. So session 1 is with mindfulness expert Caroline Stewart from Bangor, and that will be hosted by Claire Nevin. Session 2 is with finance expert and director of Keith & Kin, Sean Brown, discussing how to make the most of your money, and that will be hosted by Michael Shannon. Session 3 is the nutrition expert Sal Hamvey, and that will be hosted by Katie Crowther. And the final session will be with Wellbeing consultant Stephanie Reid, and she's going to focus on menopause. And that will be hosted, by Sarah Smith. So if you want to choose which session you go to, the session's going to last 25 minutes. And if you could be back into this main room at 3:15, and then our last speaker will be there ready and waiting for the day. Okay, so I really hope you all enjoy your sessions, and enjoy. See you later. Thank you, and I'm going to hand it over now for our final session of the day. So Roisin is going to take the lead on that. Thanks now, folks. Bye.
Thanks, Lindsay. So I'm Roisin McNamara. I'm the Alumni Relations Manager with UU, working in partnership for the conference. And I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome our next keynote speaker, Serena Terry. Serena is a graduate of Ulster University, having studied advertising at McGee, I think around 2011, Serena?
Mm-hmm.
You don't look that age.
No.
And you've also guest lectured at our McGee campus, I believe.
That's
and you also
right.
guest lecture at Northwest School of Marketing. You're the founder of digital marketing agency, Catchyco, based in Derry, Londonderry. And you've worked in digital marketing for around 15 years. But how we probably all have come to know you on our social media outlets is that you're the face behind the TikTok sensation Mammy Banter. And it's through this you've made many of us laugh through what's been very challenging times. You have a social media following of around 1.6 million and growing. And last year you launched your very first book, The Secret Life of an Uncool Mum, which I know we're going to find out more about. And also more recently, you've launched Cold Water Dipping, Donegal on the coast. Mm-hmm. And I know you're going to share that with us as well. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Serena. So take it from there.
Thank you so much, Roisin. I am just going to share my screen and I will just double check that everyone can see that okay. You can see this presentation.
Yes. Yeah.
Brilliant. Perfect. So I will kick off. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Geez, like my headset. How professional am I? Can you tell I work in marketing? I always have to have my headset on. So my name is Serena Terry. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction there, Roisin. This is me. The second one is actually me, believe it or not, with darker hair. This is me in first year at the University of Ulster, and we had a business project to do, and we went and sold glow sticks outside the union, and I think we actually drank 50% of the profits, but we'll not talk about that. But it's good to just set some context again to say, yes, I am a UU graduate, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here today and speaking to you all. I'm not going to go too much into the about me because Roisin's basically just summed it up. But if you didn't know, I am a 35-year-old mum of two. I studied business and marketing and advertising at the University of Ulster. It was actually the first year of the advertising degree that was kind of bundled up with some business and marketing, and it was incredible. I have guest lectured, as Roisin mentioned, for the University of Ulster and Northwest School of Marketing, and I've got over 15 years digital marketing experience. I have helped companies locally in Derry, Londonderry, like Elemental Software and Learning Pool to grow and scale right up to both of them being acquired by two huge major global partnerships. So that's all the professional stuff out of the way. There's my CV. So I kind of do this at the start. I'm not just one of these idiots that comes on the social media and makes funny videos and then just puts them out there, because there's a lot more behind it. And I'm delighted to be able to hear today and talk you through the story and the steps that have got me to where I am today. So as well as the professional side of things, I am also the face of Mammy Banter, who is my alter ego. And as Roisin mentioned, I think I've got over 1.6 million followers now across TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Twitter, not so much. Twitter scares me a bit. I kind of feel like I'm a first year when I go on Twitter, and I'm afraid sometimes that people are not necessarily going to troll me, because that's something that I've thickened my skin for over the last 2 years. But it's just one of those things. I'm like, is the vibe the same over here? Will people get the comedy over here? But again, I'm still cross-publishing, so I'm not putting in individual videos onto every platform. I make my content natively on the TikTok app and then cross-publish onto other apps. So that if you follow me in one app, you're going to see the same videos on the other app. As mentioned, I'm founder of digital marketing agency Catchyco, and I'll talk you through why I started Catchyco and when I started Catchyco very shortly. And as mentioned by Roisin, as the most exciting thing to happen to me last year out of everything, and a lot of exciting things have happened, I wrote my first book with HarperCollins. It's a fiction novel. And again, I'll talk a bit more about that in a wee while. I am a huge advocate for mental health, and it's something that has been hugely rewarding for me since starting my social media journey, or whatever we'll call it, 2 years ago. I always was somebody who talked quite openly and honestly about our mental health, but the fact that I've now got a platform on social media to talk about it more has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever been able to do in my life. And again, I'll talk more about that process and how I've got to where I am today by being open and being honest. Now, the most important thing, and I just need to move this control bar, if you're not from Derry, the term ride means that you're somebody who looks good. But I say that I'm an absolute ride, and I call people absolute rides because being an absolute ride is more of a state of mind. It means that you are currently in love with yourself, in the sense of you're happy where you are, you're happy where you're going, you're confident in your own skin, which 9 times out of 10, it's never going to happen every day for us as women. It's just not going to happen. But I feel that I am more of an absolute ride now than I have ever been in my life. And what's happened in the last 2 years has helped me to get to that stage. It is very much more about mindset than how I look. It's more about how I love the person that I've now become. At the age of 35, I can hand on heart say that I've never liked myself or loved myself more than I do today. But we'll come back to that again. So my journey on social media started when the pandemic hit. Before that, and on that first slide, when I just spat out my CV to you there, I was very much a working mom, great corporate job, working really, really hard the last 15 years since I left university to self-teach myself some additional skills, and always very determined to try and do as much as I could to progress, to grow up that career ladder. And the pandemic hit, and I had just gone from head of marketing in a software company locally called Elemental to being promoted to chief operations officer. I was in that role about 3 months and the pandemic hit. So as chief operations officer for a fast growing software company, the days were short, the hours were long. So when homeschooling happened and working from home happened, everything got very, very chaotic. As well as that, in my personal life, I began to feel that I was starting to turn off social media. And I don't know if anybody had the same experience when lockdown hit, but all I could see was beautiful people in beautiful homes that had their shit together, especially moms, working moms, not even working moms, just women in general who were doing their fitness regimes out the back. They were borrowing gym equipment. And I was like, how is this real life? Is it just me who's struggling here during the pandemic, or has everybody else got their shit together? Now, as a 35-year-old woman, I felt like I was well versed in knowing what's real and what's fake on Instagram. But when we've got so much time, we're not going out to meet friends. We're not going out to do any kind of social activities. We're not exercising. We find ourselves, and this was very much for me at the start of the pandemic, in that scrolling spiral of doom. In my downtime, I was going through Instagram, I was going through Facebook, I was going through Twitter, and it was a combination of, look at what I'm doing in my life, and my life's so great, fake news about COVID and scare tactics, and then just people arguing on Twitter about this, that, and everything. So I started quite quickly to realize that one of my triggers in terms of anxiety is spending too much time on social media, or spending too much time looking at the wrong things on social media. And that is something that at the time of the pandemic, it's not 100% within our control, because different algorithms on social media channels will present content to us that it thinks we like, because based on our demographics and the information that social media channels have on us, they will deliver batch content because we fit in to a certain remit. We fit into this certain group or demographic of women or people who are within a certain age, and it starts to deliver content to us. And that's the kind of content that I was seeing and going, no, I can't do this. I can't look at these images of people. Like, this is what I was seeing. I'm happy. My life is perfect. And meanwhile, I'm just going, what? How is this? This is me? This was me during the pandemic. I was just like, no, this isn't real life. So I really, really started to go through this spiral of scrolling doom. And as every time I scrolled, and again, as a 35-year-old woman, I was even telling my daughter, not everything you see in social media is true, but subconsciously I was ingesting all of this, the what the Instagram is versus the reality, which you don't see. I was only seeing what was on the left. I wasn't seeing what was on the right. Again, I was seeing what was on the left. I wasn't seeing the real image. Social media algorithms were presenting me with what it thought I wanted to see, and this aspirational content, which I feel personally is so, so damaging for women, because no matter how confident you are and how you think that you're happy in your own skin, this will subconsciously seep into your mind and make you feel that you're inadequate, or that you're a failure, or that you're not doing right. Like this creator is from Norway, and she does a fantastic series of images of Instagram versus reality to show the first picture, you know, the boyfriend or the husband or the partner presenting you with a bunch of flowers, and you're just, oh my God, so I would not be happy for that. I wouldn't thank you for that. I think most women would thank you if your partner or your husband came unannounced with McDonald's or Chinese. So it's really about, okay, that stage that I was in, it was like, okay, so these people are here, they look amazing, I'm seeing this content, I'm telling myself I'm fine with it, but subconsciously I'm not, and I'm starting to feel quite insecure. Now, that is on my insecurities, and how you ingest social media is very much subjective. This is my story, and again, what I was seeing was on the left, these people looking amazing, when in reality, on the right is what was happening to them as well. It's just that social media, the age of social media and the society of social media before the pandemic, I felt didn't show us what was happening in the right. Like, talk about an amazing metaphor. His ass was literally on fire. But what we seen was Tom Holland looking absolutely gorgeous, sitting on this cool chair. So what I did was I decided I'd had enough of Instagram. I had enough of Facebook. I had enough of Twitter. I didn't want to see it for my own mental health, for my sanity. The world was falling down around us. We were homeschooling. We were putting on weight. We were just falling apart. And as women, we're our own worst critics at the best of times, but bringing a pandemic, and it was like, right, hold on a minute. I need to do something that I can control. So I deleted Instagram, I deleted Facebook, I deleted all my social media channels. But I still felt as if I needed that escape. You know, for all the works and all the badness of social media is such a good way for us to benefit from learning, from educational content, from connecting with friends, from being inspired, for reading, being able to be introduced to new books or places to eat. It's fantastic. So whenever people talk about social media is bad for your mental health, I believe that it just needs refined, and it is the responsibility of us, as in terms of what we can control that we see on social media. But the major onus is on social media companies to deliver content to us that we choose to follow, that we choose to see. And that is why you will probably notice that when you're on social media and you're on Facebook sometimes, or Instagram sometimes, and you'll see a video pop up of an old TV show you used to watch, or a product or a store launch, and you're being pushed this content in two different ways organically from the social media algorithms, because again, they bundled you into this demographic and some of the criteria of your information, whether that's your age or your location or your interest or content that you're already following. And then it's through paid advertisements. Again, all this aspirational content that is probably doing more damage to us. So I deleted them all, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. And my daughter, who is 13, has been on TikTok for quite a while. And my assumption about TikTok was it's just this app that you see teenagers doing all these stupid dances to, because genuinely that was my assumption of what TikTok was. And then one night she showed me a video that was absolutely hilarious, and I downloaded it because I didn't have any other social media, and I needed that escape. I needed something. And I says, oh, I'll go on it just for a laugh and I'll see how it goes. And I went on it, and 6 hours later, sat down, had a bottle of wine, and I had never laughed the way I laughed that night in such a long time. And I thought, I have found my app. I seen videos from creators who were normal, that weren't perfect, that were relatable, that were talking about relatable stuff, that were talking about real life stuff, warts and all, and laughing about it and making fun about it. And it was like, oh my God, this is so refreshing. So refreshing. So what I thought was, okay, my opinion on social media has changed. And as a marketer and as a woman, there was 2 different ways I was looking at social media. First way was personally, subjectively, based on my insecurities and my interests. My insecurities of what I didn't want to see that was subconsciously making me feel bad or like a failure or inadequate. And then my interest in terms of what I wanted to see, why I use social media. I love social media to escape. I do. I love it for entertainment. I love it because I can learn things. I can be introduced to new concepts. As I said, books, recipes, life hacks. And TikTok was giving me all of that. What it wasn't giving me was that content that I didn't want to see. The algorithm on TikTok, and this is testament to how fast the app has grew, and just shows you that the proof is there, that people just want to see the content that they follow and not the content that the social media app thinks it needs to push to you because of monetary benefits, because of advertising, because of companies paying it. Now, unfortunately, I don't think TikTok is always going to be as original in terms of the delivery of its content. You know, money talks, cash is king. It will come a day that we will see advertisements, and it has already started filtering through on TikTok, but not as much and not at the level that Facebook and Instagram are doing it. Facebook and Instagram have actually started to learn from the patterns that TikTok users are seeing in feedback forms in terms of the deliverables of the content they're seeing, because it's content they want to see, because the algorithm is a lot sharper on TikTok. It's based on how long you watch a video, if you interact with that video, if you share it, if you comment on it, if you watch it again and again and again. Whereas the algorithm on Instagram and Facebook is just throwing you into this demographic bundle and thinking you want to see the content. So Instagram and Facebook are now chasing its tail, thinking we need to get sharper, because people are staying on the app longer because they're seeing content they want to see and not content that they don't want to see or is going to make them feel inadequate. So I started to see all these people, real life people, young, old, everything in between, of just expressing themselves on social media. And I thought, I can do this. There's always a bit of a character. Very comfortable in front of a camera, just based on work and having to do events for the last 15 years. And I thought, I can give this a go. It's a bit of crack. I'll do it. So this was me. This was my Instagram in 2018. Now look at this doll. Who does this doll think she is? At the time these pictures were taken, I was struggling at my worst with anxiety. I had just started taking medication. I was having severe panic attacks. But look at the pictures I was putting on my Instagram. I was underweight. I was addicted to training. Putting up these pictures with filters for what? At the time, it was for me, honestly, to put up pictures to show people that I could look nice too. I'm training. I'm successful. I'm managing work. I'm managing the kids. I'm still having a social life. And genuinely looking back, I said, why was I doing that? What for? For people to like it? Was it just for a like? Was it for a comment? Was it for compliments? And since I deleted that and went on TikTok, I was like, I don't need to do that. That's bullshit. Why was I putting myself through that? From that. So when I started TikTok and I started making videos, I got more intrinsic value from putting up videos, making a laugh out of myself, showing my rolls of fat, no makeup on, talking about losing my shit again, laughing about how it was the summer and we had to fit into bikinis, or talking about how we're waking up eating chocolate for breakfast, or the kids, my kids are assholes and I can call them assholes because they're my kids. Everything I was doing was going against the grain of what social media, Instagram, personified said we should be. It was real life, and I was following suit of other content creators there just by being honest and having a laugh and maybe dramatizing some moments so obviously it would make the videos funnier. So when I talk about how I feel like I'm an absolute ride, if I go back to here, this is me, I'd be like, I'm a ride in these pictures because they're filtered, aesthetically they look good. I'm a ride on the outside. But now I'm an absolute ride because people are commenting under my videos. Thank you so much for sharing this. I now feel less alone. I thought it was just me. Thank you for being so real. Thank you for being so honest. I've been down and you've made me laugh. Comments like that to me are a hell of a lot more rewarding. And it was like therapy for me at the time than people going, oh, I love your top. Oh my God, your hair's so beautiful. Because that's what I thought I needed to do on social media. Whereas here I am now just being myself and being real and honest and open. And millions of people are loving it. They're enjoying the crack. So I have never in my life felt more confident for that reason. It's not about what I look like. It's not about if I've got my shit together. It's not about if I have forgot a major milestone of a family's birthday or my kid's parent-teacher meeting. It's okay. We're all real. We're going through a pandemic. We're all losing our shit. It's fine. So to say I've got to that stage where I can actually feel as if I love myself, I have never felt there's room there to do more. We'll never be happy with ourselves. But the fact that people have embraced me as a person, as a content creator who literally just comes on and be open and honest has completely blew me away. So the feedback I was getting at the time was people were saying, again, same, me too. And that made me feel less alone. And that spurred ideas for more content of what am I holding my head and my hands for tonight, saying, Jesus Christ, how did I get through that day? And going, other people are bound to be feeling like this, so let's make a video about it. And I did. And I continued to do that. Other people started to appreciate it. So I was like, as a person, as a woman, this is great because other people are sick of that social, beautified, filtered, airbrushed version of what we thought we should be or had to live up to, and they're appreciating it. So as a person, I was getting to see that. But as a marketer and somebody who's been in digital marketing for 15 years, I was also able to see, whoa, the marketing landscape is changing. Brands need to get on this shit. Stop with the airbrushed aspirational content and get real and get on TikTok. So that was something that I could bring into Catchyco then, which was amazing. So I was getting professional benefits. Personal benefits, again, I was able to make people laugh, but not everybody laughed and not everybody does laugh. What I have to remember every day is I am not for everyone. And that's the best thing that I could say to my daughter and the best advice that I give her. You cannot make everyone love you. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. That's fine. But I am enjoying what I'm doing right now. I'm enjoying the feedback. I'm enjoying if I can make one person laugh. So as I started to do those videos on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, my following started to grow quite quickly. And then people started to make comments like, oh my God, you're so happy. Oh my God, you're so confident. Oh my God, you're this, you're that. And that started to unnerve me because I was like, I am turning into everything I didn't want to be. Not on the face of it, putting up pictures with filters. I was still keeping it real. But I quickly realized that people started to think that this is how I was every single day. Getting up, making funny videos, putting it out there, laughing, joking. And I was like, no, that's not happening. The one thing that I am proud of throughout my entire journey in the last 2 years is being honest. And the whole ethos for setting up Mommy Banter and creating the content that I was creating and still continue to create is that it's honest. It's an honest representation of who we are, what we do, the struggles and strife that we go through. So I thought, this doesn't feel right. People think you're confident all the time. So I thought, right, I need to tell these people that this woman that they think is incredibly confident and doing this, that, and everything in social media and it's growing. She was able to set up her own company. Guess what? She has anxiety. She suffered with depression and she's on medication. So I started to do that. And once again, I started to get this feedback from people saying, oh my God, you have anxiety. I can't believe it. So again, it was just to show that not everything you see on social media is real. Nothing. None of it's real. None of it's real. Yes, we might represent certain contexts into content forms to have a laugh and the content is relatable. But in terms of maybe the pedestal that other women were putting me on, thinking she's just got it, she's great, she can come on, she's so confident, she's so happy. Quite quickly, I had to come on and say, there's days I'm falling apart. There's days when I do not laugh. There are days when I cry. There are days when I have panic attacks. And that's okay. And again, I started to get feedback from women and men and everybody to say, thank you so much for dispelling that myth. Again, it's just to show that not everything you see on social media is real. So that is genuinely one of the most proudest things that I've been able to do, and what being able to create content in social media has done for me. It's allowed me to be honest. It's allowed me to have integrity. Yes, it's allowed me to make people laugh, and people may think, that's what it's all about. It's not. I pepper in the little snippets of mental health. I pepper in what it's like in real life behind the scenes of Mommy Banter. I don't show picture of my kids. I'm not that person that's going to be out there showing every aspect of my life. But I do feel that I have a responsibility to, again, allow people to see that not everything that you see on social media is real. And again, to mainstream and break the stigma against medication or mental health issues. And that's what I've been able to do. So I continually talk about my mental health issues. I'll say if I've had a panic attack, talk about medication. And before Christmas, as my professional life, which now includes Mommy Banter and my own marketing agency and the book, and then my personal life of having kids and trying to keep that running, as my life has ramped up, my anxiety has coincided and it's ramped up along with it. So before Christmas, I was looking for something to take the edge off. I'm on medication. What I need to look for if I need something additional alongside the medication, it is a blended approach, is something holistic. And I've done the usual exercise, yoga, meditation, and that's nice and it's great and it gives me some relief at times. But at Christmas, I was feeling very, very on edge. And I stumbled across the concept of cold water swimming, cold water dipping. And I put a request out on my Instagram story asking if anybody knew of any local groups that did cold water dipping. And it was all a bit of a mumble. There were groups in Buncrana, there were groups in Port Stewart, there was this, that, and everything. And I was like, I need something local in terms of time. I can't really be traveling straight up to the North Coast every day. I really want to try this. And it was hard to get that actual group to go and join. But then one lady, stranger, out of the blue, messaged me on Instagram and said, meet me tomorrow at Loudon Beach, 10 o'clock. She told me what I had to bring with me. She told me what I needed and how to prepare. When I got there, she talked me through the process. She took me into the cold water. I lost my breath straight away. She calmed me down. She talked me through it. And 3 minutes later, we got out of the water. And since then, I've done it every single day. The reason I did cold water dipping again was because I was on the search for something holistic that give me a bit of relief. Scientifically, cold water dipping can reduce the effects of anxiety and depression because it boosts serotonin levels. There's natural levels of dopamine. I think it's around 560% more dopamine from being in the seawater. There's a whole host of other health benefits, including reducing inflammation and so on. But for me, it was that natural, free serotonin and dopamine. That was me straight down to the water to get it. And once I did it, I started to document my progress. When I started to document my progress, and one of the hardest things that I face as a challenge, and some people say it's not a challenge, but for me personally it is that I get hundreds and hundreds of messages from people on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok every single day. And it is impossible for me to respond to them. But I am a very soft person. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I find it very hard because I've been so open about my mental health journey. I think people feel as if they can be open with me back, which is it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But the fact that I can't reply back to them, because long story short, if I reply back to everybody that messaged me on social media, I'd be divorced. I'd be the shittest mommy ever. And my anxiety would be at a whole new different level and I would get nothing done. So what I said to myself was, there's so many people looking to try this cold water dipping. They're having the same problem as me. They can't find a group. So, do you know what? I'm going to start it. I know how to do it. I had since took my friends out and taught them how to do it. Again, just walking them through the process. They had in turn taken their friends and family out. So I put together waves. If you are local, you're more than welcome to join us. This was set up a week after Christmas, I think. We've got over 5,000 followers on Instagram. We have groups now, smaller groups that meet every day. We have large groups that meet at the weekend. I have met so many women and men who all have that shared need or want just for a little mood boost. But not just that. It's became a social activity. We've all been locked up in our houses. I have met people down at these dips that I haven't seen in years that I would have usually bumped into maybe in a bar or a supermarket. It is absolutely fantastic. And as well as being able to be honest and talk about my mental health journey to help people feel that they're not alone, being able to do this face to face physically and see people and see their reaction when they come out of the water and see them the next day and them tell me how well they slept, how much they're loving it, to see them adding each other on social media and going on their own wee lunches and tea dates now, it has absolutely blew me away. And there are days that I am down at that water and there's tears in my eyes because I know how much I needed it and need it. And then to be able to see these other people come down and get it and find it and now start to build this incredible community is just unbelievable. So I set up Waves. And again, another benefit of having a huge platform. I literally just had to put it out there, set up the Instagram page and put it out there. And now we've got thousands of people following our journey and hundreds of people. We have dips in Benone, Port Stewart, Dunree, Loudon Beach. It's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. And it's turned into, as I say, this community, but not just that, a movement to say, no, this is my time now to start self-care. Cold water dipping is the main part of why we're all here to do it. But we're all here to do some self-care and look after our mental health and maybe find something that's going to give us a little mood boost. It's something that I hope to develop into a bit more than that. Maybe we're going to start doing some hikes, some walks. But again, it's all about that community and getting people out of their front doors and down to the beach and under nature. Because again, I know how much I needed it. And I know how much they needed it. So in my journey, just to wrap up, I am somebody who does wear their heart on their sleeve. I'm very honest and open. Sometimes I'm too accessible and I'm learning lessons about that again in terms of boundaries with social media and not being able to reply back. Like people reply saying messages to me and my husband will have to say, stop replying to people. You can't do it. You just can't do it. And I'm like, no, but she's so lovely. I have to talk to her. So I've always felt as if I could be somebody that could make a difference. And now I'm not moving mountains. I know I'm not. I'm very aware that people will look at me and say, she's a TikToker or she's creating content on social media. But I don't think anybody will fully understand what I feel I'm doing. Again, when I get those messages about mental health and when I get messages about people saying, thank you for making me feel normal from a TikTok video. Because it's laughing about how we maybe haven't shaved our legs or we've put on weight or, we're shit friends. We don't reply to text messages. That to me feels like I am actually making people feel okay. And that's what I want from myself. And what people don't realize, what I feel I'm doing for them, they're doing for me because they're making me feel normal. And they're making me feel that, they're the same as me. So with the Waves aspect and mental health, again, it's the same concept. I always felt as if I could make people feel better about themselves, whether that's personally, as a family member or a friend, but being able to do it in this large scale has completely blown me away. And that's why I'm continuing to do it. Confidence for me, as I said, I did have a level of confidence of being on the camera and being on the screen through my professional life and working in marketing. But I wasn't at that stage where I genuinely, thought that I had it all together, or I was somebody to be proud of. You seen the Instagram pictures I was putting up. I was filtering my life. I was filtering my face, my body. And I felt as if I was presenting a version of myself that I thought I should be, that I wasn't. Now I am the person that I think I should be. And I have room to improve. I am far from perfect. Nobody is. Nobody is. But I like myself a hell of a lot more now because I'm honest and open about real life situations, that to the point that if people don't like that, that's okay. I'm fine. That's on them. I'm not for everybody. but I know there are people out there who can relate to what I'm doing. So long story short, I was doing all that content, I set up Catchy Co. HarperCollins came knocking last year and they said, we've been following you for a while. Would you like to write a book? And again, it was just mind blowing to me to get this opportunity. And I was like, no, I would love to do that. I would absolutely love to do that, which was a crazy process, but they provided me with so much support in the way of an editor, a co-writer, and a full team of researchers to help me hone in and to focus on the content that I was creating that everybody seemed to relate to now put this into a book and flesh out a set of characters, which the title of the book is Mommy Banter, The Secret Life of an Uncool Mum, which you don't necessarily need to be a mum to read it or like it, because what I call it is the Bridget Jones for millennial woman in 2022, because it kind of sums up our highs and our lows and our insecurities. It's hilarious at times. It's tear-jerking at times. It talks about anxiety. I was very passionate about getting mental health in there. And again, extremely proud to have this book going out there. But to compare that to what I've been able to do with the Waves group and been able to talk about mental health, there's no comparison. This is a huge professional milestone for me and something that I'm very, very proud of. But again, I get more reward and intrinsic reward from seeing people talk to me about how my content has made them feel, or how talking about mental health makes them feel. And the best part for me is this whole journey over the last 2 years is that I've learned so much about myself and about how I can be who I am and not filter it and not put any airbrush on it, and people will like you. It's not about them liking me though. It's about them embracing what I'm talking about and relating to it. And that means a hell of a lot more to me than somebody liking a picture and saying my outfit is beautiful or I look well. And I feel as a society, we are done with the bullshit of the airbrushed social media and what it tells us we should be in our professional lives or our personal lives. And I can't wait to continue to carry that on through the content that I'll continue to produce. If I get another book deal and anything else that I apply myself to, I feel that I've got a set of values now in what Mommy Banter stands for, and that is real life, real talk, relatability, warts and all. And I am really excited about where everything's going. And what I try to tell people, just to wrap up, is if you visualize your highest self, what you should be personally, deep down as a person, you will show up as her. Why I say I wear my heart on my sleeve is because I always have been. I always have been a softie, but I've always been passionate. I've always been somebody who wants to help others, but I've always been dedicated to help myself as well. And throughout this entire journey, what I've tried to do is, based on my insecurities, my journey with mental health, is get those values, package it up, and position it as something that everyone else can relate to, but is also going to help me in my career, in my professional life, and create opportunities like the book. And that is what I have been doing. I feel social media is glamorizing the fact that we need to manifest stuff a lot these days. We are moving away from the, everything's airbrushed. It's still there. It's still always going to be there. But my worry for the younger generation, and I've seen this in my teenagers, they're like, oh, I just manifest something and it happens. And you don't. Yes, I can say visualize your higher self, but she shows up and then your higher self has to work. So as well as saying we can manifest what we want to do or what we want to achieve or what we want to have, you have to work damn hard at it. And that's what I've been doing. And the secret to where I've got to is believing in myself, my true self. And that might sound cheesy, but I genuinely have never believed in myself more than what I stand for and content I create. I feel like I'm an absolute ride because I love who I am today. We'll never love ourselves 100%. We never, ever will. We're women. We're just not built that way. But I love myself a lot more today than I did in those pictures. And I was hanging together, but I was presenting myself in a false facade of an airbrush picture to say my life was perfect. I'm being a lot kinder to myself than I used to be. Again, by things that I can control. By deleting Instagram at that time when my insecurities were at their peak and my anxiety was there, I deleted it. I found more time for self-care. We're all busy. We're all extremely busy. And the hardest thing is self-care. And people say self-care is taking a nap or going and doing some meditation or yoga. My self-care at the minute is going down to the ocean and going on to the sea and meeting those people and talking to them. Do what makes you happy. I was working for a software company, as mentioned, at the height of the pandemic. And I had to make a really important decision at that time because I just started TikTok, which was coinciding with me getting the promotion that I'd been on a couple of months. And I felt as if I was doing a disservice to my employer and a disservice to myself professionally. Because here I was doing HR reviews and walking through processes and organizational structure and talking about our journey to acquisition. And here I also was on TikTok with my belly out, talking about drinking wine as soon as I woke up in the morning. And it was like, right, come on, something's got to give. So I said, right, I can follow the journey into TikTok and create content, but that's not going to pay the bills. So what will I do? I'll go out my own. I'll leverage the following that I have on Mommy Banter. I had 100,000 followers at the time, and I'll set up Catchy Co. Because as well as what I'd identified as a person, being on TikTok and seeing trends and people turning away from airbrush social media, as a marketer, I was quite quickly, as mentioned, able to see that brands and businesses need to get their shit together and come down to our level in terms of us as consumers wanting real life and less aspirational airbrush content. So I set up Catchy Co. And I'm now helping businesses all over the world to create content, to write scripts for them, to work on their websites, their content management strategies that makes them more relatable. And the proof in the pudding is showing Mommy Banter. Because when I started up my own agency, I only had employer reviews. I didn't have anything from anybody to say that it's been great to work with Serena. I took that jump because I wanted to do what makes me happy. It was a risk. There was fear. At the end of the day, I was going, I have to pay my mortgage. I'm leaving this huge company job. What will I do? Company car. Didn't matter. I said, I have to do this for myself. I haven't done anything for myself. I've continued in the rat race. I need to do something else that makes me happy, and this makes me happy. And so I did it. The reason I set up Catchy Co as an agency is because as a content creator, unless you do advertisements all day, every day, you can't make money. So I do Catchy Co alongside that to continue that ethos of I want to keep Mommy Banter content with integrity. I don't want to be forcing advertisements down people's throats every day. I don't want to be that person talking about, oh my God, these hair curlers, guys, they're amazing, 10% off 1 week, and then the next week saying, guys, these hair curlers, because that's what happens. Nothing against anybody who does that. To me, that's social media influencers. I don't feel like I'm a social media influencer. I feel like I'm an entertainer. And that is what I love to do. And I see it as a hobby. And by continuing to do that, I'm keeping my channels real. I'm keeping the engagement there. I'm more relaxed delivering my content because I'm not worrying about selling products via ads on there. Because I'm making ends meet with my agency. But I'm still able to do what makes me happy. And again, it's about being kind to yourself.
Yeah. Can we give you 1 more minute, Terry? Thank you, Serena.
Oh, I love the way you called me Terry there now. So do what makes you happy. Set your goals. Again, you can manifest stuff, you can dream it, you can wish it, you can say where you want to be, but you need to have goals to where you want to be so you can break it up. You have to work hard. I'm sorry, anybody that says again that you can just manifest stuff and these things fall on top of your lap. It doesn't happen that way. With Mommy Banter, there are people genuinely who think that I just sit in my kitchen table making TikToks in 15 seconds and they're done. There's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of work that I won't bore you with, but there is a lot of work. So you work hard and then you work harder. I haven't stopped in the last 2 years, but I am so grateful for absolutely every opportunity, every person that I've met, every person that I potentially have touched or made feel better. I'm grateful for absolutely everything. And I think, again, that's what keeps me sticking true to that ethos of Mommy Banter and being real. Sorry, it's the way back. I'm telling you to work harder. You've already worked hard, and then you've already worked harder. So is there any questions?
Serena, that's absolutely fantastic. I think a lot of people have commitments at 4, so a few people have left us, but that was a fantastic end to our event, and we really appreciate your time. I could have listened to you for a lot longer. I loved you talking about values. I love you talking about authenticity and honesty, that importance of community and networks, which is what we try and do here at the Women's Network and the other networks at the university. So everything that you said resonated with me personally and professionally. So thank you very much. And we're getting great comments in the chat box as well. So really appreciate appreciate you joining us today. And I just put a call to action for everybody. Thank all the speakers today. Thanks everybody who put loads of hours in to organise this event today. The team have worked tirelessly in the background. Well done. I hope you've all enjoyed it. There's the alumni network out there for people to connect to. There's a disability, LGBT+, BAME network, the Women's Network. International Women's Day is coming up on the 8th of March. Watch out for what we're doing around there. Just keep looking at insights at the university to see what else we're doing. But it's been a great event, everybody, and I just want to thank everybody for their support. Hope you've enjoyed it and hope to see you again at our next event. Thank you.